This online. I request all the hosts kindly you may mute all the participants once again. Yeah. Very good morning to all of you. This is a 3 days online training program on child-centric disaster risk reduction being organized by Child-Centric DRR Center NIDM in association with Manipur University. And this course has 2 modules and 6 sessions. Each day there will be 2 sessions and the training will be from 11 to 1 p.m. So I request all of you to kindly join all 3 days and ensure you are having minimum 80% of attendance to secure your certificate. And objective of this course is to discuss the basic concepts of disaster risk management and also to explain the impacts of disaster on children and also to describe the concepts of child-centric DRR and list out the child-centric disaster risk reduction activities. And you will also be learn about how to apply the strategies for school safety with the engagement of children and also explain the impact of disaster and mental health of the children. And finally, you will be able to understand the process of mainstreaming this child-centric disaster risk reduction from this course. So with this brief introduction, now I may invite Subita Devi, Assistant Professor from Manipur Central University, to deliver a welcome address. Over to you, ma'am. Your mic is muted, I think.
Am I audible, sir? Am I audible,
yes,
sir? Thank you very much, sir. Now may I request Dr. Soram Sonia Devi to conduct the program of this inaugural session. Madam Sonia.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Good morning, all. I hope I'm audible to all the delegates. At the outset, I, on behalf of the organizing team of the online content orientation training program on child-centric disaster risk reduction, being held from 22nd to 24 September 2021, jointly organized by National Institute of Disaster Management, New Delhi, and Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, would like to request the coordinator from Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, Dr. Koizum Sobita Devi, to kindly present the formal welcome address. Ma'am, please take your time.
Very good morning and welcome to everyone. Respected and Lokendra Singh, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Manipur University. Respected Major General M.K. Bindal, Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India. Respected Professor Santosh Kumar, Head Department of Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India. Respected Professor W. Chanbabu Singh, Registrar, Manipur University. Respected all from Child-Centric Disaster Reduction Center, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India. All resource persons.
We are not able to hear.
Subita,
on behalf of the Department of Education.
Sir, for your kind information, Manipur, they have a poor signal, so
It's
sorry.
Right. There is a local internet issue. So, ma'am, you may go ahead. If you turn off your video, then audio will be more clear.
Am I audible, sir, now?
Yeah. Now you are audible. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Because of the poor network.
Yeah.
Once again, on behalf of the organizing team of the Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, I welcome you all at this 3-day online content orientation training program on child-centric disaster risk reduction to be starting from today and 22nd and 23rd and 24th September 2021. And we are so honored to have all of your presence. And this program is jointly organized by our Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, with the Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India. And we are very grateful and extend our heartfelt gratitude to the National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India, for giving us a chance to associate with their esteemed institute in organizing this online training program. And we are also grateful to the authority of Manipur University, especially our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor N. Lokendra Singh, and our respected Registrar, Professor W. Chan Babu Singh, for giving us the permission to go ahead in organizing the training. And the training program will cover different dimensions of child-centric risk reduction for children living in an environment of disaster. Children are vulnerable and affected by any kind of disaster, both during and post-disaster phase. As we all know, children need love, care, support, and opportunities in order to instill self-confidence, creativity, problem-solving abilities, and a sense of initiative. Developments during the formative years lay the foundation for future behavior and personality in children. A positive environment facilitates children to explore and develop all round physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, etc. Children in difficult circumstances are prone to expose to or engage in unacceptable behaviors. It is extremely important to address their psychosocial needs in such circumstances. And studies have shown that confining children or social distancing during the COVID-19 lockdown shown that their mental health with anxiety, frustration, and depression. Parents may struggle to find ways to let the children understand about the situation, adding to the frustration. According to UNESCO 2020 report, there may be risks of violence and abuse on children for those families in quarantine or isolation, as stress levels go up for the adults. Lack of outdoor activity, irregular dietary and sleeping habits can lead to monotony, distress, impatience, annoyance, and varied neuropsychiatric manifestations in children. School as a second home for children, as we all know, with plenty of free spaces and offerings a range of freedom and scope of interactions, thus providing children with psychosocial solace in addition to pedagogy and scholastics. School
Your voice is breaking, ma'am. Dr. Sobita, your voice is breaking. You are not audible. Uh,
Dr. Balu, when the connection is disrupted, she can't even listen.
I hope that all the participants have a fruitful, great time during these 3 days of training. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I, on behalf of the organizing team, would like to take the privilege to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor N. Lokendra Singh, to kindly deliver the inaugural address. Please, sir.
Sir, you need to unmute yourself so that we can hear you. Lokendra Singh, sir, we are not able to hear you.
It's raining out here in Manipur a little bit. That is why the network is little.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we may invite another dignitary since the Vice Chancellor, sir, is, I think, his network, he is having some network issue. May someone coordinator may request
So
log out?
may I call Honorable Vice Chancellor? Sir.
When shall we proceed?
Meanwhile, we should proceed, and Honorable Vice Chancellor may log out and log in again so that the connectivity issue will be resolved after that.
Uh,
Yes, Dr. Balu, we may proceed with the next speaker. Meanwhile, Honorable Vice Chancellor will be joining again. Or
Smita ma'am, for your kind information, I think all from your side having poor network. So sorry for the inconvenience. I am inviting now Professor Santosh sir. We'll move on to the next. After that, we can go for another dignitaries. Now it's my immense pleasure to introduce Professor Santosh Kumar sir, who is the professor and head for Child-Centric DRR Center and Governance Inclusive DRR Center. He was a former executive director of NIDM and also a director for SARC Disaster Management Center, and he's having a global experience on disaster management. With this brief introduction, now I may invite Professor Santosh sir to deliver opening remarks. Over to you, Professor Santosh sir.
Thank you very much. I think I'm audible, Dr. Vallu.
Yes, sir, you are perfectly audible.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. The dignitaries, Lokendra Singh ji, the Vice Chancellor of the university. Unfortunately, the connection is poor, so we could not hear him, but definitely we would listen to him later. Then we have Dr. Chand Babu Singh ji as a registrar of the university, Manipur University. Shobita Devi ji, and she spoke very nicely in the opening remark from university. And also we have Soni ji, which actually comparing the whole thing, the Soram Sonia, if I'm correctly pronouncing her name, and my team, Dr. Raka, Dr. Balu, Ranjan, and Vertika and Dolphy. One that is very interesting that we are having collaborative engagement with the Manipur University, and we are very glad to have this kind of a collaboration. So I extend my heartfelt thanks to the whole of administration, especially Lokendra Singh ji, the Vice Chancellor of the University, and Registrar Chand Babu Singh ji. NIDM child-centric DRR is not very old. It's very infant itself. So it's a child-centric center itself is a child. So, and we have taken a larger responsibility in our shoulder. The idea of that, what Madam has flagged in the beginning, so Bitaji, that children are going through different phases, different traumatic experience, and also pandemic has brought things differently. And the impacts are also different to different one, especially different socio-cultural environment, different social strata, and also different kind of schools if they are going into, if they are not going to a school or they are not able to access those schools, or those children who are, even if they are not going to school and they are having this kind of online teaching and other thing, there is again is a kind of a serious gap. This morning I was reading one article from Economist, and it was saying that only 8% of the children in the rural areas, they could get access to the whole of that education arrangement which was made in the during the COVID-19. So this itself is a big concern, that how that divide is coming up, and the whole impact you will see after 3-4 years. Those who could go to their school or those who could not go to their school but could manage to attend online programs, and those who could not attend because there is no fault of them that they are not able to attend, but definitely the fault of the situation, their affordability. So who would think about this kind of a challenges? And we are saying that small bits and pieces probably would not work. You are highlighting also about the issue of psychosocial care. We are also talking about the children are not same. They are having a different kind of a definitional range also, 0 to 4 years or 6 years to 8 years, 8 to 14 years, and all have differential need. Some children are not even able to comprehend what is happening all around. Some children, they're not even able to just infant, newly born baby. So their needs are different. So in this context, it's very, very complex situation we are into. And normally in the normal situation, when we go, it all looks fine. But when the complexities of various disasters like Assam flood is there, Bihar flood is there, cyclonic storms are there, cascading disasters are there, and if the relief camp is put up on the highways, then 6 months their children and the family are living on the highways in the relief camps. So what kind of a plight they are going through? Many become orphans, many become a kind of a with a single parent kind of a family. So in these complexities, I see very much the role of universities in terms of identifying those issues, making a good research and supporting public policy intervention for taking up the issues of disaster risk management, especially for the children, in a very, very kind of an innovative format. So when I think that, don't you think this is a time for looking for a transformative policy rather than just a band-aid approach? So band-aid approach we have been doing for the last many, many years. We are also going for symptomatic treatments for any of the challenges which we face. But when we join with the university, we always find that university can provide a very good solution because they are having or they are blessed with a multidisciplinary team who can focus on psychology, sociologists can focus on sociology, economics department can focus on the economics of that whole poverty-ridden people, their families, and how they are going into, as the World Development Report says that this year, due to pandemic, 11 million more poor people have been added in the figure. So poverty also doesn't have the similar kind of impact on everyone. The depth of poverty is to be seen. Like many people might be on just on the line, poverty line, below the poverty line, but many much below than the poverty line. If you fix up, say, $100 or $2 a day as a poverty line, that many might not be even having $0.5 also. So what would be the plight of those families? So these kind of desegregation and micro studies can be taken up by the universities. Our child-centric DRR is trying to look at those issues, that how we can think of and start looking at those issues, so that, as you very rightly said, they are the present and also the future of the nation. So how those our future of the nations can be strengthened, capacitated, and their voices are heard. We also try to triangulate many of the experiences from the grassroots to the public policy to the civil society group, and come up with our own kind of experiences and try to say something. But those who are into it, the children who are actually facing it, how their voices could also be heard. So some kind of arrangement or some kind of a formal platform can be provided to our children. They are not they are we. So how we can see that we should be integrated in our whole public policy framework, in our research, in our programs, and in our actions which we design, whether at the household level, whether at the society level, or at the market level meaning thereby, which we say as a kind of a formal, informal. Many children, I was Yesterday I was walking through and I could meet 10 children on the street. And I just clicked a photograph with them and I became friends with them. And I was talking that, and they were rag pickers, you can say that. And it was not they were doing it traditionally. So this is the impact of COVID that they got in this kind of profession after leaving that school. So I was finding them that how they feel now after from book to the rag pickers, what kind of feelings they are going through. And it was very traumatic to go through. I mean, many of us cannot absorb even what the stories they are telling. So that is why it is our responsibility, we say, and we should think of that how university can help. Just should not be confined to one webinar or training programs, which we are doing for 3 days here today. Let us draft also kind of an action plan for the future and how these universities can play a very, very important role with NIDM. Just to inform you, if you are not aware, NIDM has also created an Association of Indian Universities network for bringing your knowledge and wisdom together in the whole disaster risk management. So I would request you, if you have not joined that, you please join that fraternity also. So I take this opportunity once again to welcome all of you and extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you. I would stop here and I can say that wish you good luck, but it's very heartening to note that our partnership is now there and we are organizing this program together. Thank you very much to all the team members and also the Vice Chancellor and Registrar of the University. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dr. Balu. Or sorry, to Sonia ji.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable information and expressing your experience with all of us. Once again, thank you very much, sir. Now, I, on behalf of the organizing team, would like to take the privilege to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor N. Lokendra Singh, to kindly deliver the inaugural address. Please, sir.
Respected General M.K. Bindal, Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, Learned Professor Santosh Kumar, Learned Professor W. Chandbabu Singh, Registrar Manipur University, Learned Professor T. Nauvi Singh, Dean School of Education, Dr. Kumar Raka, Program Officer, CCDRR and NIDM, Mr. Ranjan Kumar, CCDRR Center, NIDM, Dr. Balu I, CCDRR Center, NIDM, the coordinator of the program, Dr. Koizam Sovita Devi, Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, and co-coordinator of the program, our learned resource persons, participants, and ladies and gentlemen. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015-2030, adopted at the 3rd UN World Conference in Sendai, Japan on March 18, 2015, outlines 4 priorities to prevent or reduce disaster risk. 1, understanding disaster risk. 2, strengthening governance to manage disaster risk. 3, investing in disaster reduction for resilience. And 4, enhancing disaster preparedness for effective response and to build back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. The framework aims to achieve substantial reduction of disaster risk and the losses in lives, livelihoods, and health, and in economic, physical, social, cultural, and environmental aspects. According to the Save the Children UK Humanitarian Policy Team report of 2007, it is estimated that 175 million children of the world are affected every year by natural disasters like floods, cyclones, droughts, heat waves, severe storms, and earthquakes. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report of 2014 estimated that the climate change associated with rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns will intensify the spread of vector-borne diseases such as malaria and dengue. Children are reported to be particularly vulnerable during the natural disasters. They face a range of risks from death, injuries, and malnutrition to water scarcity, poor sanitation, psychological trauma, etc. Displacement and separation from parents or guardians further expose children to abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. The COVID-19 pandemic is an example on the disruption of children, especially in their education during their critical development years. There are also reports of behavioral problems in children during the pandemic. Prevention and mitigation policies can help children at risk by enhancing capacities of the communities to prepare for and respond to disasters. The policies need to be oriented towards increasing school safety, evidence-based recovery programs, and identifying high-risk children. Child-centric disaster risk reduction can be a long-term strategy for sustainable and resilient development for the current and the future generations to cope with natural disasters and climate change. Children, families, and communities need to be prepared for shocks and effective recoveries with prior focus on the vulnerability by understanding the drivers of inequality in the event of natural disasters. We need to invest in resilient development so that communities, families, and children are able to bounce back for uninterrupted growth, development, and a social cohesion. I wish the 3-day online content for orientation training program on CCDRR jointly organized by Manipur University and National Institute of Disaster Management a grand success. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir, for your informative inputs. Hope your words will be well appreciated by all the trainees and delegates present in this virtual room. Once again, thank you, sir. Next, may I request Professor W. Chandbabu Singh, Registrar, Manipur University, to kindly address the delegates. Sir, please connect and take your time.
Thank you, Sonia. At the very outset, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah, at the very outset, I wish my warm regards to Professor N. Lokendra Singh, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Manipur University, Major General M.K. Bindal, Executive Director, NIDM, Government of India, Professor Santosh Kumar, Professor and Head, CCDRR, NIDM, Government of India, Dr. Kumar Raka, Program Officer, CCDRR Center, NIDM, Mr. Ranjan Kumar, CCDRR Center, NIDM, Dr. Balu, CCDRR Center, NIDM, Dr. Sobita, and all other learned friends and the resource persons and the scholars attending this program. Well, I'm so thankful for giving me a chance to interact this morning with the distinguished and learned people and dignitaries. In fact, we talk all about the disaster management, and a disaster is a part of life on today's time. But the thing is that how to control our lives and how to protect ourselves from this disaster, how will we respond during this disaster time, is really something very, very important. Whenever there's a disaster occurred, then the maximum injury is occurred, in fact, to the children. An injury in their mind, injury and wounds in their bodies, and the mental trauma which are created because of this disaster, that is tremendous, in fact, and to the children mainly. I'm not saying that, okay, they are the only group of people who are affected, but yes, all of us are affected along with the animals and all other inhabitants on this earth. But the trauma which is created because of that is so huge to the children. When we talk about disaster, generally we talk about 5 different steps for disaster mitigation. One is we generally talk about preparedness. That means how much proactive we are with relation to disaster mitigation. This is one of the very important steps which we need to understand very well. Second is very important aspect is the mitigation part. Mitigation here she talks about is how to reduce the human loss and the loss of lives. This is again a very important aspect. Third aspect is the level of preparedness which we all should have for disaster and during disaster. The fourth aspect which we find with relation to disaster is all about the response. When you talk about the response, the strategy for responding on this disaster, we can talk about the speed of the response during this disaster and the scale of the response which we are talking about during this disaster is extremely important. And this response also depends on the kind of infrastructure in fact we have. Suppose in terms of hospitals, doctors, paramedics, nurses, and as a hospital related manpower for handling this sort of crisis situation. Then another thing is all about the number of trained manpower in for handling this crisis and the disaster. All these aspects are in relation to response. The fifth is a very important aspect which are very much important for all of us is the recovery aspect of the disaster. After the disaster is occurred, we basically forget about how to concentrate on the recovery and the rehabilitation of the people along with the children who are affected because of these natural disasters and calamities and any other form of disaster. Here we need to have a strong team of people who are really dedicated and committed, and they need to have a continuous engagement of the people who are affected by the disaster. Here we need a proper counseling throughout this recovery period, and we need to identify the the economy and the livelihood of these affected people, and how are we going to help them while trying to adapt themselves in the new environment after the disaster. That's a really very important aspect which we generally forget. Now, when we talk about handling such a disaster and a crisis, two groups of people are extremely important during this time. One is what we call as the public policy framers and the public policy experts and the professionals. Unfortunately, India is one such country where we have not yet introduced the programs on public policy management so far in maximum number of universities of India. When you talk about training for public policy, we generally identify a group of people and send to the Western countries for studying public policy. Of late, yes, public policy and management, such types of courses have come up in few universities in India, but this is not sufficient. We have some specific organizations like National Institute of Disaster Management that talks about training people and conducting different programs related to disaster management and its manpower development and giving training. But this is not sufficient in itself. The reason being the intake capacity of NIDM, the scale of the work which they are going to do. India is a huge country having 1.3 billion and more people. So how to train by one such center of government of India, this is NIDM, for covering the whole world and the whole country is a tremendous pressure to NIDM, I feel. So we need to come up with greater perspectives of or greater opportunities of coming up such courses in the universities. That is really important. Another very important area which the government of India has not yet focused is all about the public health professionals. Yes, we talk about good doctors and producing more number of doctors and giving more trainings to doctors and all. But besides doctors, we need to see, say, a huge number of, say, public health, say, graduates and professionals. And just let us see how many universities in our country has opened this, say, public health professional programs. All India Institute of Medical Sciences, okay, in almost, say, some of their, say, centers have come up this public policy programs and public health policy programs, public health programs, in fact. So Master in Public Health program, which all Indian Institute of Medical Sciences have come up, this is not insufficient. This is not sufficient in itself, because we need a huge, say, trained professionals in this public health and its related areas. Few universities have come up in India so with relation to such programs, but yes, we need to see to produce more number of public health professionals today. So like this, see, we need to focus very strongly in, say, various areas of, say, disaster management. And in relation to this, whatever I'm saying is my personal opinion, and it is not, say, basically from the core academics and the research point of view. I would like to share some of my experience with relation to disaster. 1989 flood in Manipur, one of the worst, say, flood in the history of Manipur, and that I have experienced. As a team of students group, I was involving in the disaster response teams during that time in a few districts of Manipur. So the kind of experience which we have seen and the struggle and the sufferings the people had during that time, it is not erased from the memory till date. 2005 JNK earthquake, I was there in JNK during that time, and I knew very well during that time how people struggle at that very point of time. 2013 flash flood in Uttarakhand. I escaped from Uttarakhand that very evening, and that very evening the disaster started, and during that time national disaster started. I somehow saved myself and escaped from there, and this is a great experience, in fact, with relation to disaster and the worries and the difficulties that has generated and created to the people and the assets, lives, and of course to all the living beings on that particular location. And that is really great trouble and great worries. So how to prevent ourselves from that? Then what is the level of preparedness for us? Then how quickly can we respond during this scenario? And then again, how much dedication we need while trying to build a rehabilitation system for the people who are affected by disaster management. And this is really very, very good, a very important aspect, in fact. So the child-centric disaster risk reduction, and on that particular theme, 3 days orientation program will be of great help to all the participants from the universities and other colleges, and otherwise also other faculty members involved in that. And such types of programs will definitely bring a lot of new things in our level of preparedness, and how will we respond timely and dedicatedly for controlling disaster, and at the same time preventing ourselves from more worries and sufferings. And in fact, I'm so thankful to the Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, and the National Institute of Disaster Management, New Delhi, for organizing such program, and in times inviting me in this distinguished platform. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing with us your valuable experiences and information. Once again, thank you, sir. Now, I would like to request Dr. Nazia Hassan, Assistant Professor, Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sonia ma'am. I hope I'm clearly audible to everyone.
Yes.
At the very outset, a very warm good morning to everyone. It is a matter of great pleasure and honor to me to get the opportunity to propose vote of thanks on this inauguration function for online content orientation training program on child-centric disaster risk reduction, organized jointly by National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India, and Department of Teacher Education, Manipur University. I am extremely thankful to organizing team who has given me this opportunity and has organized this program for introducing different strategies to reduce the disaster risk, especially for children who are very vulnerable to these disasters. I would like to express my sincere thanks to Professor N. Lokendra Singh, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Manipur University, who has given the inaugural address for this inauguration session. And he talked about the importance of risk reduction strategies that can be adopted. And then I would like to express my gratitude to Professor W. Chandbabu Singh sir, Registrar Manipur University, for his address for this inauguration function. He highlighted the vulnerability of children during and post disaster. And he talked about the trauma that children used to experience during as well as post reduction. And he talked about his own personal experiences with disasters. And he has given points related to steps of disaster mitigation and about rehabilitation of affected persons. And I would like to thank Dr. Koijam Sobita Devi, Department of Teacher Education, and coordinator of this program from Department of Teacher Education, who has given welcome address for this inauguration function and has highlighted the things we are going to do during this 3-day training program. And I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Balu I, who has given brief introduction of the program that is going to be conducted for this 3-day. And then I would like to thank Professor Santosh Kumar, Head CCDRR NIDM Government of India. And I would like to express my thanks to Professor Kumar Raka, Program Officer CCDRR NIDM Government of India. And I would like to thank everyone who has joined this program, including all dignitaries and participants of this training program. And Dr. Suram Sonia also, who has hosted the program so well, and the technical team of Manipur University, including Tilokchan sir, who has arranged it in such a good manner. And I think this program will be highly beneficial and productive for all the participants joining the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Nadia. Thank you all. Now we have come to the end of the inaugural session of the training program, Kurum Zeri. I request the delegates to kindly wait for the technical session to follow soon. Now, may I request our speaker, Dr. Kumar Raka, Program Officer, Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center, NITM, New Delhi, to deliver on the topic, Do's and Don'ts on COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Sonia ma'am. Thanks a lot. With permission of all dignitaries, we should now move towards our technical session. If you kindly allow me so that we can start the first session of this 3-day training program, that is COVID appropriate behavior, do's and do-nots. As all of us know that situation is still grim and maybe third wave looming large on our head. And we have experienced in all those states where festivities were going on, and immediately after the festivities, the cases of COVID-19 has started increasing. And similarly into the entire North India and the Sahara and Durga Puja and Diwali and etc. festivals are on head. And if the guards are lowering, then there may be chances that third wave will be in front of us, more spreading, and people will be again suffering from COVID-19. And in last 2 waves, we have observed that what was the pressure of COVID-19, how much spread, how much fastly it's spread throughout the country. And accordingly, the first session is mandated for COVID appropriate behavior so that we don't lower our guards, and we are prepared to fight COVID-19. So before starting my presentation, can anyone give me the presenter's role so that I can share my presentation with all of you? See, COVID-19, meanwhile, I'm speaking, and someone may please give me the presenter's role here. See, COVID-19 first wave, it started very rapidly. The same thing happened during the second wave of COVID-19. The only difference between the first wave and second wave given us immense time to be prepared, but as casual, normal human beings, we didn't feed upon it. We didn't take care of it that, okay, first wave is over and now COVID-19 is finished. Nothing is there. And as a result, immediately after a few months, second wave of COVID-19 was on our head. And since we were not prepared, the hospitals, the people, everything was surprised. A lot of people, a lot of population has been hospitalized, a lot of deaths has been occurred, and there was a scarcity everywhere. So still I haven't been given the opportunity to share my presentation. Please, the coordinator, can you please give me the presenter's role so that I can share my presentation?
Host may kindly make Dr. Raka as a presenter. Dr. Sobita, please inform the technical person to make Dr. Raka as a presenter. Whether he can understand the language or not.
Yeah, so I think Dr. Balu, it's comfortable going into English here only. No need of...
sir. Yes, yes.
It's okay, fine. So see, the first COVID-19, बालू वो शेयर करा दो presentation लोग देखेंगे तो it's more appealing than
just a minute, sir. I think host may not understand our language. They are speaking. Sonia ma'am, please ensure that host is making Raka sir as a presenter. You are muted.
Sir, I will inform them, sir.
Please, please, please.
Once the presentation is on screen, then it's more appealing for the participants. Otherwise, I would keep speaking, no problem. So because time is also less, okay, Dr. Balu, and we have 2 sessions. So meanwhile, I'm speaking, and whenever I receive the sharing option, then I'll share my presentation as well. So see, all of you know that the first case of COVID-19 was identified in Wuhan province of China in December 2019. Okay, and this timeline I'm just sharing with all of you so that you can understand the spread and contagiousness of this disease. Immediately after a month and a half, you can say, the first case of COVID-19 in India was identified in January 2020 in Kerala state. Okay, and after January 2020, immediately 2 months later on March, and the entire country went into the lockdowns and closures. Okay, now I have the sharing option with me, so let me share my screen with you so that it's much more appealing for participants. So I was telling that, and once into the lockdown and closures, and it continued for months and months. And when the reopening again started, the people didn't take care of the COVID appropriate behavior in a larger sense. I'm talking about a larger population. Everyone was thinking that now it's over. And what happened immediately after that? Again, the second wave. And you know, all ages of people in all countries were being affected by COVID-19. No one was rescued. Nothing. It was not that only the poor or rural people are getting affected. Everyone was getting affected. So the thing is that after the first wave, what has happened? Why didn't we prepare? And now we have seen the second wave as well. So it's always better to prepare ourselves and don't lower our guards so that no one can stop COVID-19 third wave, fourth wave, or fifth wave. As all of you know that almost over 3.5 crore people has been infected by COVID-19 in our country, and over 4.5 over 4 lakh people have been died because of COVID-19, but recovery has been also tremendous. And that is because of COVID appropriate behavior and vaccination now. Okay. So just a report in last 24 hours, almost 26,000 cases, over 26,000 cases, 383 deaths in last 24 hours. But the only one good thing here, we can see that from last 1 week or 10 days, cases are coming beyond 30,000. From last 10 days, I am observing it, and it's less than 30,000. And deaths also have decreased, but deaths are still higher side compared to the number of cases. Okay, so now the Delta variant is also a concern. Okay, because the new virus is spreading in form of Delta variants, and Delta variants is much more contagious if compared to the previous COVID-19 viruses, either it's alpha, beta, or gamma. So vaccination is key as of now. Almost over 80 crore people have been vaccinated till date in our country. And once majority of population is vaccinated, then we may achieve herd immunity someday, very soon. But in case of children, vaccines are not available yet. So being prepared and not lowering our guards is the only key to fight COVID-19 and break the chain of COVID-19. So let's start with that, how we can do that. The very first thing, we have to identify the symptoms of COVID-19, because symptoms of COVID-19 is not different from normal cough and cold and fever or with weather changing illness or sickness. Okay, whenever weather changes from hot to cool or summer to winters or rainy season, normal cough and cold and fever starts spreading. And all those symptoms in normal cough, cold and fever is same what we have observed the symptoms of COVID-19, like cough, sore throat, fever, muscle pain, chills, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, loss of taste or smell, and diarrhea, headache. These are new things has been included into the COVID-19 symptoms. And all these symptoms, believe me, is very common, nothing unique, nothing new with COVID-19. So the thing is, if we are extraordinary precautious, identifying COVID-19, we have to take these symptoms very seriously, not lightly, and we don't have to go for the self-medication. If any of the symptom is appearing, just talk to your doctor. Doesn't mean that you have to go to the hospital or the clinic and visit the doctor face to face, but always you can talk to them, because they are the trained people, they are the trained professionals who identify the symptoms, and accordingly they treat you. And if the symptoms is not subsidizing, then immediately they may advise you to go for COVID testing, either it's antigen test or RT-PCR test, depending on the situation. So 2 key points if you want to fight the COVID-19: identify symptoms immediately and talk to your doctor. Don't take it lightly. Now, 3-4 things you will find here, very important do's and do nots. Washing your hand is again the most important tool when we are fighting against COVID-19. Okay, these hands are culprit. I'll tell you how and what is the reason behind it. And washing our hand with soap and water is the key. Okay. The second important thing, whenever you are sneezing or coughing, always cover your nose or mouth. Whatever you are having, either it's a handkerchief or it's a napkin or a tissue paper or any piece of cloth along with you. If you are having nothing, then you can sneeze or cough like this, okay, or like this. But immediately after that, you just go and wash your hands. That is also very important. And whenever, if you are using any disposable item for these purposes, then throw it into the closed bins, not into the public places, not into the everywhere. Doctors, I have already told you, and we need to avoid gathering places. Initially, I told that all those states where festivities has happened recently, like Kerala, okay, Kerala Onam was festival, and after that there was a lot of gathering, people gathered and celebrated, and after that all of a sudden such in this cases. So avoid that, and festive season is coming there. So celebrate festivities better at your home and follow all COVID appropriate behavior, which we are going to discuss here during the festivities as well. Don't lower your guards. Whenever you are coming into contact with anyone, unknown person who is having experiencing cough or cold or fever, then don't go into the close contact. Maintain at least 1 meter of distance in between the group. Okay, and you know, one of the human habit is that is unconscious habit that normally we used to always touch our eyes, nose, or mouth or hair unknowingly. It's subconscious level. Okay, and it has been found in research that different human beings used to touch the area above their neck 50 to 250 times within one hour. Within 1 hour. Okay, and like I told that these hands are culprit, and these eyes, nose, and mouth, this is the place from where virus enters. Once hands goes on to touching something unknown, which we are not sure about, it's sanitized or it's infected. And after touching those things or places or space, immediately unknowingly, okay, I'm touching my eyes, or nose or mouth. And that is the way how virus enters our body. So if we cut these two things, okay, eyes, nose, and mouth covered, and hands always clean, the maximum chances that COVID-19 virus can't enter our body. The next important thing here is spitting in public. Spitting in public was never a public sense, ethical sense. And COVID-19 has shown us that this is really avoidable. We should not spit in public, because see, whenever spitting or coughing or speaking very loudly, and very tiny aerosols get out of our body. Okay, and if we are infected and those tiny aerosols are coming out of our body through sneezing, coughing, or spitting, and they stay into the air for quite some time, those tiny aerosols. And if some healthy person is also passing out through that area, and there are chances that they will be getting infected. That is why spitting in public is a big no in times of COVID-19 and for any other viral disease. Spitting means spreading the viral disease. Spitting at public places, I mean. So these things we have to ensure, and we have to always keep remember. And now it's time that we should ask ourselves that whether we are doing these things or not, whether we are washing our hands with soap and water or not. Whenever we are coughing or sneezing, we are covering our nose, mouth or not. Whenever we are meeting some unknown person, whether we are maintaining 1 meter or 2 meter of distance with them or not. And if any symptoms, whether we are talking to our doctor or not. If we are doing all these 3-4 things, believe me that COVID-19 will be at back. But now, along with these things, certain other things are also very important in fighting, breaking the chain of COVID-19, that is masking. The purpose of masking is what? The purpose of masking is as simple as that. If you want to understand, you drink water, that is essential for life. The same way breathing air is essential for our life. So both things are essential, and in terms of water, what we used to do, whether that is RO water or filtered water or not, if not, then we don't take it. Even when we are visiting outside or into any restaurant or public places, unless we are sure that the water is pure, RO pure, we don't take it, because we know once taken inside, we may fall sick. The same is with the mask. Mask gives us fresh air to breathe in and fresh air to breathe out. The fresh air goes when breathing out as well. So masking is very important. Either we are infected or not infected. Okay. If not infected, then whatever air we are taking in for breathing, the fresh air going in. And if infected, then whatever we are breathing out, the fresh air will go out, and no other healthy people will be getting infected because of what air we are breathing out. So masking is very important. And now there is one more difference. Masking means proper masking. Okay. We need to wear mask in a proper way, and the proper way will be coming on your screen. Just read it out, and I'll also try to explain. First, clean your hands, because the filter, when the filter itself will be contaminated, how it's going to give a safe air for breathing. Okay, so cleaning hands is first thing before wearing the mask. Okay, first clean our hand, and after that I'll take the mask with the ties. Okay, and keeping the ties, I'll put it on mouth and nose, and now I'll ensure, okay, it's properly covered. Okay, it's properly covered. Now whatever air I'm taking in or throwing out, it's completely safe. Now what happens while wearing the mask? These are the common situation scenario what is on your screen right now. This is just having a mask, not properly wearing a mask. Many people will keeping it at neck, nose open, ties loose, touching the mask very frequently over it. Hands will be dirty, hands will be contaminated, and the mask itself will be contaminated. Over the head, into the neck, into the elbow. They're all wrong things. And again, when removing the mask, the first thing, we have to clean our hand. And after that, taking the stripe on, we have to take it out. And if it's disposable mask, then after use, dispose it into a closed bin at a closed space, not sprayed openly everywhere. And if that is this N95 mask, then ensure that it's properly washed before being reused if it's contaminated. Otherwise, if you think it's completely safe, then you can reuse it, but only with the ties. Don't touch the mask itself, don't touch the filter itself. And washing our hands before and after, before wearing the mask and while taking it out, just use ties, not directly the mask. Now the thing is, second thing after wearing a hand washing, and hand washing is so important that entire this 3 days training you will find it 100 times, 200 times on your screen. And you know that hand washing is not like that, just keep your hands under the tap and just take it out. No, hand washing should be proper. And many of you are students and many of you are knowledgeable people. Can you tell me what is the minimum duration for washing our hand with soap and water? You can put it down in the chat box so that I can see how many amongst us today on this platform is knowing the exact timing. What is the minimum duration required for washing our hands with soap and water? How many seconds or how many minutes? Do you know? If no, then just answer in the chat box. Let me see that. Hello, everyone. Yes. Now I have started receiving answers. Okay. 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 Just waiting for a right answer. 3, 4 answers I have received, but not a right answer till now. So just let me know how many minutes or seconds it's important to wash our hands minimum. Now now I'm started getting right answers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So 20 seconds minimum is very important when we are washing our hands. Okay, 20 seconds minimum is very important. And you know why? See, everyone, people start telling something and people start following that. That is not the case. 20 seconds are after a lot of research. And why 20 seconds is important now, let me explain you so that you can explain others as well. This is something like COVID-19 virus, okay? And this is wrapped under a protein layer, spikes. These spikes are protein layer and under which the COVID-19 virus is protected, okay? And this COVID-19 virus is completely safe under this protein layer, which is wrapped around it. And once this protein layer is destroyed, the chances of survival of COVID-19 virus is absolute minimized, okay? It can't be it can't survive for longer duration once its wrap is destroyed. And for destroying this wrap, we need soap and water at least for 20 seconds. At least for 20 seconds. Up you can go 25 seconds, 30 seconds. That is another thing. But you can't wash your hands for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. That is very, very difficult. Try to do it. And whenever we are washing our hands, check your screen. This is the right way, palm to palm between the fingers, back of the hand. And after that, back side of the fingers, base of the thumbs, fingernails, wrist, and wash and wipe dry. After washing our hands, again, another important thing, rinse and wipe dry. Okay, then hands are completely virusless, otherwise not. So these 2-3 things, and now the third very important thing is social distancing. And social distancing, why? Again, because whenever there is a crowded place, closed place, there are chances that virus may spread to more people. Okay, so that is social distancing at public places as well. And whenever we are meeting with someone, we are not sure they are having COVID-19 infection or not, symptoms or not, then we have to maintain 1 meter of distance everywhere, wherever we are visiting, either it's hospital, malls, markets, restaurants, offices, classes, tutorials, everywhere. And along with that, see, in the festive season also, even if you are going out into the market to purchase things or etc., don't lower your guards. Maintain distancing, wear mask properly, and be aware of your hands. Whenever it touches something you are unsure about whether it's contaminated or not, then immediately wash your hand if soap and water is available there. If not, then keep alcohol-based sanitizer along with you. Okay. And also these things we have to do during the social events. Many social events may be postponed, like birthdays, etc., etc. But many we can't postpone that. For example, last rite of a person or birth of a child, we can't postpone it. So if something is imminent, then we have to avoid the maximum number of guests so that chances of spread is always there. And it has been observed there were marriages in various parts of countries, and there were a lot of guests there, and 1 or 2 people were infected there. And as a result, whoever went into those marriages or the ceremonies, everyone was infected after 5-6 days. So the contagiousness we have to understand. Where is Wuhan province of China? Within 2 months, it was into the Kerala, and next 2 months, the entire India was closed. Entire world was closed. So contagiousness is very high, and unless we will follow COVID appropriate behavior very strictly, it's difficult to contain the virus. So mind it. Things have reopened now, okay, and now schools and educational institutions are also reopening. So for school and educational institutions, we will be having a separate session later on the 3rd day or the 2nd day, where we will talk a lot about it. But right now, focusing, whenever you are going into any public place, maintain social distancing and avoid unnecessary travel as well. Okay. Until unless it's very important, don't go out. Okay, either for whatever reason, it's social, commercial, religious, cultural, sporting. Until unless very, very important, don't go out. And if you have to go out and complete your work, then you have to be very careful following behavior, COVID appropriate. And shaking hands or hugging is now, it was okay before COVID-19, but COVID-19 is forcing us to do only the Hindustani Namaskar. That is the best way of greeting someone as of now. Okay. And just keep reading on your screen. I'm not reading everything because time is also less, trying to explain the things actually. Till now we were talking about if we are healthy and how we have to save ourselves from being contaminated or being positive. Okay. But once after taking all the precautions, suppose that somehow I'm infected, then what I have to do? Or you are infected, then what you have to do? After infection, there will be two scenarios. Either it's a mild case of COVID-19 or it's a severe case of COVID-19. In case of severe, in case of severe patients, they are supposed to be hospitalized and go under the medical supervision. So there you don't have to do a lot of things because medical fraternity, doctors, paramedics will be there to take care of you. But in case of mild contamination or viral load, you may be told to stay at home and into the quarantine. There you have to take care of yourself on your own and along with your family members or caretakers. In that situation, certain things we have to remember that are very important. The first thing, whenever quarantine, be into quarantine, not visit the entire home. Okay, it has been observed also, and there has been a lot of cases like that, that one person is infected and he or she is home quarantined, but they didn't follow the appropriate rules of quarantine, and as a result, the entire family was infected within 1 day or 2 days or 3 days. So quarantine means quarantine. You have to isolate yourself from others within your family. The first thing, and the quarantine rooms should be well ventilated with proper sun and sunlight and proper air, fresh air. And if a toilet is separate with your room, that is well and fine. And if the single toilet within a house is being used by many family members, then after usage by the infected person, every time the toilet has to be disinfected and sanitized. Because toilets are one place where frequent hand touching different type of things like flushes or taps or soap or etc. Everyone goes and flushing and tapping taps of the water. So disinfecting that is very important if that toilet is being used by the infected person as well as the other family members, right? And when we are sick, a lot of people, relatives, friends used to visit us, and within our family also there will be a lot of other family members maybe. So we have to keep distancing of at least 2 meters between the two. Okay, 1 meter, okay, but it's always better to keep distancing of 2 meters. And if within the family there are other vulnerable people like senior citizens, pregnant women, and very young children, then stay away from them. Simply stay away from them. Because once they are infected, there are chances that they will be severely affected. Okay. And I told that restriction within the house is very important. It doesn't mean that if you are having 3-bedroom flat or 5-bedroom flat, then everywhere you are visiting, touching everything. That doesn't mean quarantine. Quarantine means a single room and you have to keep yourself isolated. Also, you have to identify frequently touched things or items within your household, like car keys or remotes or laptops or mobiles that are used by other family members as well. The first thing, try to avoid sharing the item with other family members. And if it's very important, then before being used by other family members, it should be sanitized and cleaned properly. Okay. Till now, we were wearing the mask when we were going out into the public place or out of our comfort zone. But once infected, then we have to wear this surgical mask 24/7. Even if I'll be sleeping, then I'll try to wear my surgical mask on. Okay. These are the things we have to be very careful when into the home quarantine. Otherwise, entire family will be infected. No one can stop it. Now about the children, there is nothing different. There is nothing special COVID appropriate behavior for children. All these things, what we are following, they have to do the same. But since like our experts told that there is a wide range of age groups within a children, we start counting children when they are into the womb, 0 years till the age of 18 years, right? So 0 to 18 years, quite a large age group. And different type of needs and requirements are filled by different age group of children. So that we used to tell life cycle approach in our disaster management language. That will be discussed at length again tomorrow, maybe tomorrow in another session. But here, for the sake of understanding, let's divide children into 3 age groups: dependent children, semi-dependent children, and independent, completely independent children. So those children who are 18 years or 16 years of age, they are independent children. Independent in the sense, I mean to say that they are not completely dependent on their caretakers or parents for their day-to-day life routine, like sleeping or going to toilet or having food. They can do it on their own. So those children who are independent children may take care of themselves once properly guided and directed about what is the right way of washing our hands, what is the right way of wearing the mask, and how can we maintain social distancing. But the same is not if we compare them with the dependent group of children. Dependent group of children are those who can't do their daily life routines on their own, and they are dependent on their caretakers and parents. Like 4 or 5 year old kid, he is dependent on her mummy, papa, or elder bhaiya, sister for everything, even for going to toilet. Mama, I have to go to toilet, take me. Or Papa, I have to, I am not able to tie my shoes lace, so please help me. Sister or brother, I please help me having my lunch or dinner or bread. So they are dependent on their caretakers or parents for their normal life routine. So similar way, you have to be extraordinarily observable and caring when COVID-19 appropriate behavior in terms of those dependent children. It's completely your responsibility because they can't do it on their own. And now semi-dependent children, okay, they are those age group, suppose that 8 to 9 to 12, 13, once you tell them how to do the things, they start doing that. But they are not completely on their own. Suppose that if someone is ringing your doorbell, a small kid into the semi-dependent group, okay, completely dependent can't go and open the doorbell, okay, but semi-dependent can go and open the door after hearing the doorbell. And he is just thinking that, okay, my bada bhaiya or sister is coming, my elder brother or mummy or papa or someone in my family is coming. So he'll just open the door. But he is not aware that there may be someone unknown person at the door infected by COVID-19, and how he has to, he or she has to make the distance, so maintain social distance. So in that case also you have to be very, very observable and guiding. Okay, so that they can start observing COVID appropriate behavior. And along with that also, see, it has been observed that children start understanding and imitating their role models often, quite often. And role models are always teachers and the parents. Most of the time for any kid, his or her parents or the teacher is the role model. And if the role models start doing COVID appropriate behavior, very strictly following COVID appropriate behavior, either it's hand washing or wearing of mask or maintaining social distancing, believe me, all the kids start imitating that and following that. And it has been established in terms of watching TV, using of mobile phones. Once caretakers stop it, children also stops it. But if parents or teachers, the role models, are doing the same thing, and if they used to think that, okay, my child will not do, so it's very, very difficult. You can't do that. So role modeling is also very, very important when we are teaching COVID-19 appropriate behavior to different age group of children, right? And there is a helpline number of Government of India for coronavirus. And on previous slides also, there were a lot of helpline numbers. So we will share this presentation with all of you so that if you want or need any further information, then you can always directly connect. These are all toll-free numbers, and these are helpful many times. Okay. This is my last slide since already we are late. So I would try to wrap up a little bit fast here. This is alphabet learning, and this is again something unique we have found on the internet. We don't know who has prepared it, so there is no referencing here, but it was quite interesting. We tried to find out whose invention it is, but it was not there, but it's quite interesting. All the alphabet what we had learned during our childhood, either it's A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, D for dog, E for elephant, we all remember that. And that alphabet learning age for a child is cognitive development age. That is a process of mind, and all the memories and learning learned during those age group is retained for a longer, very longer duration of time. And in order to start preparing our children for such future disasters such as COVID-19, and start training them for A for avoid crowding, B for beware of fake news, C for clean your hands frequently, D for don't go out, etc. Then in the future, the children will be certainly much more prepared and resilient when something like COVID-19 is striking us again. And believe me, COVID-19 is not the first and the last biological disaster. Earlier, it was 1989-19 Spanish flu that wiped out most of the population throughout the world. And this time, this COVID-19, the gap is huge. But in between, also SARS-CoV cases here and there, they are coming and going. Okay? You all have been knowing that this COVID-19 is nothing new. This is a new version of SARS-CoV. And similarly, scientists are also predicting that this is not and first and last. Maybe in the future, smaller biological disasters or maybe even the larger biological disasters may occur. And for that, the best thing we have to train our children right now onwards with the COVID appropriate behavior, proper health education, targeted health education, and that is the way we can make them much more prepared and resilient. And in future, something like COVID-19 happens, then they will be ready to fight it back, not to go under the lockdowns and closures. So along with that, thank you very much. And I would like to take all of your questions now, if any. And thereafter, we will go ahead with the second session of this first day. Thank you very much. And over back to you, Sonia ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Your inputs are valuable and indeed relevant to the present pandemic situation. Thank you very much, sir. So next, we have our second speaker, Mr. Ranjan Kumar from Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center, NIDM, New Delhi. Sir will deliver on the topic, Disaster Impact on Children. Sir, please connect and take your time.
Whoever is having any questions related to the session right now we had, you can put up your question in the chat box, and at the end of the second session, we will take all the questions together and all your queries together. So whatever confusion, questions, or information also sharing, if you are having something, if you think that that will be for benefit of our training module or accreditation, we will share and we will discuss at the end of the session. Meanwhile, just put all your questions in the chat box. Over to you, ma'am and Ranjani.
Very good morning to everyone. Good morning to Savita ma'am and all participants. Today, next session is regarding to the basic concept of disaster management. During the inaugural sessions, lot of discussions, lot of terminology used by the registrars regarding to vulnerability, in terms of vulnerability, risk, disasters, preparedness, prevention, mitigations. This terminology used by by honorable registrar registrars of Manipur University. So why it is important? Terminology is very important to understand for manage any type of disaster. As a disaster manager, your role is very important in each and every disaster. This terminology is very important. So terminologies I have discussed today. I will discuss today on different terminology. What is the disaster? What is the risk? What is the vulnerability? How to determine risk? What is the prevention? So first of all, please give me a presenter role. Host for sharing my PPT.
Sonia ma'am, are you there? Host, kindly make Mr. Ranjan Kumar as a presenter. Host.
Okay.
Sonia ma'am, Sobita ma'am, anybody is there? Yeah.
Now, okay. So my session basically based on the basic concept, and today I will discuss about the different terminology given in UNISD, given with reference to UNISDR, United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction. The UN body has defined different disaster hazard, disaster risk, vulnerability, exposure in different ways. So for this terminology, all this terminology is very important for my and for each and every person, for each and every level for planning. Basically, all of you involved in disaster management planning, this terminology have most important role during any disaster situation. So the terminology basically disaster, hazard, disaster risk, vulnerability, exposure, capacity. These are the terminology used in disaster management. Next, I will discuss about equations, how to determine risk. So the equation of calculation of risk is hazard into vulnerability into exposure by capacity. It is very important for any type of calculation regarding to any type of risk, any type of determine for any quantifying the risk at various level. We all aware about we have to prepare plan of different levels, local levels, state levels, district levels. We have to prepare plans. So this equation is also very important during the planning process, preparedness and planning process. So one by one, we will define the terminology used in determining risk. So R is equal to hazard into vulnerability into exposure by capacity is very important equation, and this is the golden formula given by UNISDR and used by UNISDR. So here hazard is the concept and vulnerability and exposure also variables. And if capacity enhanced, then we can minimize the risk at each and every levels. So now define the hazards. How to define the hazard? What is the definition of hazard? So hazard, a process, a phenomena or activity that may cause loss of life, injury or other health impact, property damage, social and economic disruption and environmental degradation. So these are this is the definition of hazards. But hazards is any phenomena, have a potential to cause, have a potential to may cause loss of life, may cause injury, may cause health impact, may cause property damage. But hazard become a disaster when the potential to cause destruction is fulfilled. Then we consider as a disaster. Larger disruption of human losses, life, property, beyond the coping capacity of the individuals, organization, system, then we can be considered as a disasters. So hazard, there are different type of disasters. Disasters are hazards, but all hazards are not disasters. Depend on the different exposures and vulnerability and capacity. So hazards may be natural or anthropogenic. There are different types of disaster. Disaster may be natural, may be anthropogenic. So we have divided in four types of the hazards category, four category to hazards. So first category of hazards is geographical hazard. Second, be meteorological hazard, and third, hydrometeorological disaster hazards and biological hazards. So these are the different types of hazards. Next slide, we have discussed about the now next is how to define disaster. This is the definition of disaster. So disaster is a serious disruption of functioning of a community or society at a scale due to the hazardous events interacting with conditions of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. Here we have seen the terminology of exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. So disaster, the type of disasters, the impact of disasters vary according to the exposure and vulnerability, socioeconomic conditions, physical conditions, environmental conditions. Different conditions exacerbate the frequency of disaster. So serious disruption. Disaster means serious disruption, larger beyond the coping capacity of the individual, beyond the coping capacity of the system, beyond the coping capacity of systems, and beyond the coping capacity of government. Then larger scale of disruption happened, then be categorized as a disasters. So leading to one or more the following human material losses, like economic losses, environmental losses, physical losses. Suppose that seen in the picture, so one person standing near the mountain, and due to the falling of stones, bigger stones, lost life. So this is the called any human losses. Suppose that any earthquake happened in, for example, any earthquake happened in deserts. So this is not a disaster because no population is there. Again, we imagine the same earthquake happened in the city, larger scale damage, larger scale of critical infrastructures like home, houses, schools, infrastructures like critical infrastructure like electricity transmissions, road transport, all. So then we have considered as a disasters. So we have these are the difference between disaster and hazard. Beyond the coping capacity, beyond the coping capacity of community, beyond the coping capacity of individual, beyond the coping capacity of systems, then need to a special external support from external agency like UN, UNICEF, and other NGO during the disaster. Support that flood happened in Bihar. And the capacity of the Bihar government is not able to handle this flood situation. They need to take a special assistance from national level of the national organizations, authority. So this is the beyond the coping capacity. Suppose that COVID-19 happened in your village. You do not have any capacity to handle this COVID-19 situation. No proper facility of medical public health centers, medical staff. Then the probability of chances of disasters, frequency of disasters, probability of the impact of the COVID-19 in this village is very high. Means vulnerability became exacerbated due to the exposure and vulnerability. The chances of the impact of the COVID increases. So this is the main difference between disaster and hazards. Now we define about the disaster risk, how to determine this. The risk means specifically risk means disaster risk की बात करते हैं. So the potential loss of life, injury, or destroyed damage assets which could occur to a system, society, community a specific period of time. So disaster risk means how to determine this. Risk is equal to hazard into vulnerability to exposure by the capacity. This is the equation, and according to this equation we determine the risk. So how to define the risk? there are different, this have a potential to lose life, injury in particular time, period of times. So injury, destroy, damage, which could occur to a system, society or community in a specific period. So how to determine the probability as a function of hazards into exposure, vulnerability, and capacity. So these are the equation also important. Suppose that we have seen in the pictures, one person is standing near the mountains. The risk is very high because vulnerability and exposure is very high in for this person. So how to determine this? So the hazard is falling down or fall of a big rock. Also damage, they lost their life. Also, this man also affected due to the falling of the rocks. So this so determine probability as a function of hazard, exposure, vulnerability, capacity. So these are the definition for how to determine the vulnerability. Now discuss about the vulnerability. So the condition, the situation, determine why the physical, socio-economic, and environmental factors. Suppose that some persons living some coastal area of the some village located near the coastal area. So probability of chances of the cyclone impact is very high in that area. So vulnerability of the village during the cyclone period is very high. So these are the different conditions, physical conditions, socio-economic conditions, and environmental conditions also play important role. So this condition, according to the equation of disaster risk, vulnerability and exposure increases, then chances of the risk is very high. When your capacity is better, more enhancing, like you have to support that in flood affected area, you have a good early warning system, you have a good skilled person for managing floods. So this depends on the capacity of the system, it depends on the capacity of individual, depends on the capacity of community. So vulnerability, we determine vulnerability in different ways. Physical vulnerability related to socio-economic vulnerability and environmental factor also affect the disasters. So exposure, now discuss about the exposures. Now discuss about exposure, the situation of people, infrastructures, housing, production capacity, and other tangible human assets located in hazard prone. Suppose that some villages are located near the rivers, low-lying area. Suppose that some school, critical infrastructure are located in low-lying area. During the flood situation, impact of the flood more on that infrastructures. Support that some community living near the flood affected area, coastal area. So the vulnerability and exposure is very high for that community. So if that community have a better capacity, they have good knowledge of swimming, good have a boat, also have a preventive and prevention and mitigation measures, and very have a good knowledge about the floods, then the capacity is very high, then risk become low. So the situation of the people or infrastructure, housing, production, and capacity, other tangible human assets located in the area is called exposures. And if a hazard occurs in an area of no exposure, then there is no risk. Suppose that somebody go to a desert area, earthquake happened, so there is no risk, no exposure of any type of impact impact on the earth. Okay. Now capacity. Now discuss about the capacity. What is how to define capacity? So capacity refers to all the strength, attributes, and resources available within the community. Capacity means coping capacity. Coping capacity related to floods, coping capacity related to different type of hazards like earthquakes, cyclones, resources available in community to manage any type of disaster. So these are the capacity, individual capacity, skill capacity. So, one of the better example of capacity development is Odisha. In 1999, in Odisha, 1999, about 10,000 persons lost their lives. But during the filling times, filling cyclone, only 35, about 25% lost life. So capacity of Odisha is very high. Odisha have a good early warning system. Odisha have good community-based shelters. So the capacity also have a major factor to manage to reducing any type of risk. So capacity means different type of capacity. Capacity with individual capacity was regarding to resource. Suppose that flood affected area embankment have some state have an embankment near the river. So this is also a capacity to manage floods. So this is the capacity referred to all attribute and resources available within the community, your organization, your society to manage any type of disasters to reduce danger for strengthening resilience. Now define damage. So disaster damage occurs during and immediately after the disaster. Suppose that earthquake happened in any highly populated area. So chances of physical damage like loss of home critical infrastructures like transport services, roads, house damage. So how to quantify this damage as a disaster manager? So we quantify disaster damage in physical units. Suppose as road damage. Discuss about the road. We discussed about the damage of road. The squad, how many kilometer of road damage during the earthquake. Suppose that discuss about the damage of house in flood affected area. So how many houses damaged due to flood fully or partially damaged. So we quantify the disaster damage as a physical unit. Describe the total partial destruction of physical asset, the disruption of basic services, damage to source of livelihood in affected area. So, these are the method to quantify the damage. So if you next disaster risk management. So disaster risk management means holistic management according to the organization level, yeah, planning level, yeah, application level measures for responding to any type of disaster, for build back better, for minimizing any future risk. So holistic management of disasters is also known as disaster risk management. According to these equations, the risk equal to hazard into vulnerability into exposure by capacity. So this is the disaster management cycles. We have divided into different disaster divides into different phases. During disaster phase, post-disaster phase or pre-disaster phase. Pre-disaster phase basically we cover in this phase risk reduction process like preparedness, preventions, mitigations, and post-disaster phase covers response, rehabilitations, and reconstruction. And during disaster phase, we consider relief, immediate response, immediate relief like search and rescue, security, food, water services, immediately short term, basically short term, and rehabilitation and reconstructions and recovery is the part of the post disaster phase. So these are the now defined how to define prevention. So any activity a measure to avoid existing and new risks. Suppose that in flood affected area we have prepared embankment near the rivers. So any activity, suppose that you have for example during the COVID-19 situations, you have wear a mask, also follow the social distancing, and also take vaccines for as a preventive measures. So these are the measures, the activity for the reducing, for avoiding any type of disaster, any type of risk then we have considered as a prevention. So prevention aim at reducing vulnerability. Main aim of the prevention is reducing the vulnerability from different disasters, reducing the vulnerability and exposure. In such context, the result of the risk of disaster is removed. So in this picture, we have seen that this rock is also bind through a Zanjeer. So the chances of risk is reducing for this mine. So as for example, dam or embankment in also in flood affected areas also as a preventive measures, considered as a preventive for eliminating the flood risk. So these are the preventions. Mitigations we consider long-term mitigation measures की बात करते हैं. So we have talked about the long-term mitigation measures. So sir, lessening or minimizing of the adverse impact of the hazard events. Suppose that the mitigation measure taken as a engineering technique, hazard assessment, constructions, well as improved environment and social policy and public awareness. These are the mitigations measures. So suppose that we have one of the better example, Bhuj earthquake. During the large number of students, large number of population lost lives, and during the 2001 Bhuj earthquake, after Bhuj earthquake resistant building also made in Bhuj area. Now 8.8 now Bhuj also have a capacity to manage 8.8 earthquake, 8.8 magnitude earthquake. So mitigation measure include engineering techniques, hazard resistance construction, and also improved environmental and social policies and public awareness for minimizing the adverse impact of different type of risks and different type of risks. So these are the mitigations. Preparedness means pre-disaster pre-disaster planning की बात करते हैं. Preparedness means the knowledge and capacity, enhance knowledge and capacity of individuals, government agency, strengthen the capacity of organizations, government agency in response and recovery organizations, and community individuals for in response to different disaster and risk, for reducing the risk. These are the preparedness. Suppose that we have prepared a disaster management plan, mock drill exercises for school children. These are the preparedness. These are the part of preparedness. Enhance capacity of community regarding to COVID-19, COVID pandemic. We have to aware the people about the COVID do's and don'ts. How to maintain social distancing, hand washing process, and social distancing, and other. So these are the prepared part of preparedness. So knowledge and capacity, enhance the capacity, knowledge and capacity of organization, community, government agency for anticipating in response to any type of risk, any type of disaster. This is they define as a preparedness. Now to define response. In previous slides, in disaster management cycle, response is the phase of during and disasters, action taken directly before, during, and immediately after a disaster. During the any situation, any type of disaster, suppose flood happened, so immediate mass displacement happens. So in response to flood, the immediate need of flood, food, water, shelters to the affected community. So action taken directly before, during, after a disaster in order to save life. Main objective to save the life, reducing the health impact, and ensure public safety and meet the basic sustainable need of the people in affected area. So response to disaster. Suppose that earthquake happened and mass destruction happened in earthquake affected area. So activity related to search and rescue, provide evacuations, provide food and shelters, medical aid, first aid. These are the immediate response. Immediate response within the 24 hours, we provide immediate response to affected community. So these are the response. Rehabilitations. Rehabilitations means restoration of basic services and facilities for functioning of a community or society affected by the disaster. Suppose that flood earthquake happened and all critical infrastructure like road, transport services, transport services, electric supply and water supply is also badly disrupted due to the earthquake. So immediate need to the restoration of these basic services is considered as a for functioning of smoothly functioning of the community and society affected by disaster. This is considered as a rehabilitation. So this is the rehabilitation. Now recovery. Recovery means all recovery की बात करते हैं. तो restoring and improving in sense of recovery in sense of provide restore livelihood, restoration of livelihoods. Restoration rehabilitation restoring and improving of livelihood, health services, as well as economic, physical and social cultural involvement, access system and activity of a disaster affected community. Overall for build back better, for sustainable development, to avoid the reduce future disaster. इसको ध्यान में रखते हुए अगर any activity for restoration regarding to livelihood for long term recovery की बात करते हैं, short term long term recovery की बात करते हैं. Recovery means overall recovery related to livelihood, recovery related to health services, recovery related to all basic supply of restoration of basic services like transportation, electricity, for better functioning of the society, affected society. In sense of in aligning with the sustainable development for build better, for reducing the in consideration with the reducing the future disaster. This is the recovery. Now reconstructions. Reconstructions medium and long term rebuilding and sustainable restoration of resilient critical infrastructures. Services like housing facility, livelihoods required for full functioning of the communities. Generally, we have seen that any disasters, these basic services are badly disrupted. Suppose that the earthquake happens, cyclone happens, all critical infrastructure services like water services, transport services, electricity supply, telephone, telecommunication services badly disrupted. So medium and long term rebuilding and sustainable restoration of resilient critical infrastructure services is required for full functioning of a community. So reassurance with overall for in consideration with sustainable development, build back better को ध्यान में रखते हुए to avoiding the reducing risk of disasters, future disaster risk. This is the construction. Suppose any earthquake resistant structures in earthquake prone area, highly prone area. So these are the medium and long term sustainable restoration and resilience activity considered as a reconstructions. Now this define resilience. Resilience means refer to ability of individual, community and system to be resistant to shock and stress brought about by natural disasters. Suppose bounce back better and bounce forward. Suppose we have a better example of Odisha cyclone. In 1999, 10,000 people lost their life. But during the final cyclone, Monday 25, so Odisha have better resilience in terms of cyclone mitigation program. Odisha have a capacity to manage any type of cyclone. Odisha have a good yearly warning system to manage any type of cyclone. Odisha also having a good community-based facility to located people during cyclone. So these are the resilience of the government. Similarly, the resilience of community in with respect to the COVID-19. You have suppose that any person, any individual vaccinated vaccination of COVID-19. So, that individual had a resilience from COVID. So this is the resiliency. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs. Sir, there is one question which is being asked by one of our participants. The question is, how disasters are different from hazards?
So, I have given one example. Suppose I have defined that the hazard may cause lost life. So suppose there are difference of disaster, and what is the difference between hazard and disaster? Suppose that any hazard happens. Suppose that it happened in desert area. You are staying there. So this is the chances of losses of life and any damage is minimum. So this is the hazard have a chance, but disaster same earthquake happened in a city and damage the mass scale of disruptions like houses damage, critical infrastructure damage, then that is disasters. So all disasters are hazards, but all hazards are not disasters. Hazard, suppose that then we have to consider the equations R equal to hazard into vulnerability into exposure by capacity. When degree of vulnerability and exposures increases, then hazards become disasters. Then beyond the coping capacity of the individuals. बात कर रहे हैं beyond the coping capacity of community, beyond the coping capacity of organization, beyond the coping capacity of a state. Suppose that a flood happened in Bihar. A state government have no capacity to manage floods. So need immediate external support from national government to manage the floods. So flood is a mega disaster. Because larger population displaced and number of people lost life, number of houses damaged partially, number of houses damaged fully, a number of road infrastructure also damaged, all function of community disrupted. Then this is the disaster. This is the so hazards become a disaster in जो बोलते हैं एक्सपोजर एंड वल्नरेबिलिटी के रेस्पेक्ट में जब इंक्रीज करता है इंक्रीज द वल्नरेबिलिटी एक्सपोजर्स then hazards become a disaster. So the hazards have a capacity to loss life injury, but exposure and vulnerability also play important role to become a disaster. Hazards become a disaster. There are different type of suppose that different type of hazards. Geographical hazards, geographical hazards, meteorological hazards, hydrometeorological hazards. So geological hazards में हम consider करते हैं landslides, earthquake. So these and this is the thing. These are the differences.
Thank you very much, sir. So now, for today, we have come to the end of the technical session. Hope all the trainees have garnered important information from our expert and had a fruitful day. Thus, I request the coordinator, Dr. Koijam Sobita Devi, to kindly connect and call it a day. Madam, please.
Thank you, Sonia. A very good afternoon to everyone. And again, once again, I express my heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries, resource persons, participants, technical managers, and print and electronic media team for covering our program and for your valuable time as well as for your support. Thank you once again. And I would like to thank once again all the participants for your active participation and for your kind concern for children. And as we all know that children are the most vulnerable section in the society whenever there is any kind of disaster. Let's join our hands to protect our children, to enhance their physical and mental health. And I would like to request all the participants to attend next 2 days more, 23rd tomorrow and day after tomorrow. And the feedback link will be provided on the last day. And let's have some useful informations. Let's collect useful informations, how to manage the disaster during the time of disaster and how to care for, how to so again, thank you everyone, and let's meet the same platform and at the same time tomorrow by 11 a.m. So till that, let's wind up the program, and thank you everyone, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabita ma'am, and Sonia ma'am for nicely organizing the first day of the event. And for the participants' information, there is no regular feedback. Means every day we are not submitting any we are not giving any feedback form. So end of the program, you need to submit your feedback at our training portal, and you can download your certificate from the portal itself. For that, you need to ensure minimum 80% of your attendance. Yeah. And Supita ma'am, tomorrow first session will be handled by me, disaster impact on children, followed by Mr. Ranjan Kumar, introduction to CCDRR. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.